tonight's topic is evolution versus intelligent design. So I will start by offering two lines of evidence for evolution, and then I will falsify intelligent design. So let's begin. This is the only slide I need to demonstrate the veracity of evolution. This paper alone buries the issue entirely. Statistical evidence for common ancestry. So, what this study did from 2016 was they did a statistical test on real life genomic data. As you can see on the bottom right there, they tested two models against each other: the common ancestry model, which would be the evolutionary model, and the separate ancestry model, which would be the creationist intelligent design model. And they used a statistical test on real genome data in primates to test these two models. And they even accounted for the functionality of all the genes that they were testing for, because they specifically tested the third amino acid, the third nucleobase in the codon. So there's a degeneracy in the DNA codons where the third position can be different and code for the same amino acid. So that's what they were looking at. And so there was, there was variance between them, but no functional difference. So you cannot say that these differences or these similarities are due to function, because they're all coding for the same amino acid sequence of proteins. So they controlled for any kind of rebuttal from creationists about, oh, it's only similar because of common design. They controlled for that in their analysis. And what they found, I will quote here from the study: the common ancestry model provides the best explanation for the data in a direct comparison between common ancestry and the family level separate ancestry model. An observer that thought that both models were equally valid will, after evaluating the sequence data, be essentially certain that common ancestry is correct. The posterior probability for the family level separate ancestry model is about 10 to the power of negative 4,528. That is an infinitesimally small number. And on a suborder separate ancestry model, it was 10 to the power of negative 124. So just to put that into perspective, 10 to the power of 124 is more than the number of atoms in the known universe, substantially more. This blows out separate ancestry and completely falsifies it as a model. Just this statistical test alone, I can rest my case on. But I will continue, because evolution has also made verified, tested predictions. For example, this is a phylogenetic tree constructed by genetic similarities. As you can see, humans and chimpanzees are the most closely genetically similar species now between humans and any other animals. So the evolutionary prediction would be that we should find lots of intermediates between humans and the most recent common ancestor that shares traits of humans and chimps. There should be lots of these transitional fossils found that have mosaic properties about their anatomy. And that's exactly what we find. We find lots of them, from Homo erectus, Homo habilis, Australopithecus, Ardipithecus, Sahelanthropus, and Aurorine. There are tons of examples of these transitionary fossils that, again, have the anatomical features that are predicted by the evolutionary model. There's literally tons of them, just from humans to the most recent common ancestor between humans and chimps. This is just one example, but you can do this with more than just two species. You can look at groups. For example, this group right here is known as tetrapods. That it includes humans, dogs, mice, chickens, lizards, frogs, etc. They're all tetrapods. And the most genetically similar animals to all the current tetrapods are lungfish. So the evolutionary prediction should be that we should find in the fossil record transitional fossils that have intermediate mosaic properties in their anatomy that are shared by tetrapods and lobe-finned fishes. And in 2004, scientists made this prediction that we should find this transition. They said it should be found in this certain layer that occurs near the surface in an island in the north of Canada. They went there and they found Tiktaalik, exactly what they were looking for, a lobe-finned fish with wrist bones and a neck, an exact anatomical transitional fossil. Again, I should clarify that we don't need to know if this fossil had any offspring at all or if it is the exact transition or not. It does not matter. It could be a sister clade. It would be completely beside the point. All that matters is that it has the exact anatomical features evolution predicted in the layer it was predicted to be found. Here's more examples, right? Since whales and dolphins are mammals, then evolution would predict that they should have evolved from a land-based species. And we find all these transitionals. So you might say, hey, there's other marine mammals. How come we don't find their transitions? What about manatees? Well, here you go. Here's the transitions from land to sea for manatees. You say, oh, what about seals? Here's seals. We literally have the transitions from land to sea for all of these species. Here's elephants, for example. And again, we have the skeletons for all these too. I just showed this because it's much more easily to visualize. But you can see here, where do you draw the line between what is an elephant and what's not an elephant? It's not so clear cut because the Barytherium have all the basic same anatomical features as a Paleomastodon. It's just in slightly different morphologies, but the anatomy is very similar. So for you to say one is an elephant and one is not is a little untenable. Here's horses as well. And here's all the other transitional forms that I couldn't even fit into this PowerPoint. I could do this for days going through all of these. I didn't even talk about Archaeopteryx, which is the one originally predicted by Darwin. I mean, there are tons of transitional forms. We could spend the entire time just talking about all the transitional forms we have. And this is not even a comprehensive list. There's literally hundreds. But we never, ever find transitional forms that evolution does not predict. We don't ever find an animal with flowering parts, or an amphibian with feathers, or a vertebrate with compound eyes, or here the hippopotamus crustacean, or an invertebrate with a vertebrate jaw. We don't find these. Evolution does not predict their existence, and we don't find them. The fossils that we find that have its intermediate mosaic anatomical features are only ever the ones that evolution predicts we should find, and we never find any to the contrary that evolution would not predict. For an intelligent design model, we should expect to find intermediate forms between any of these. I mean, it's a little fishy that we only find the ones that evolution is predicting, right? So intelligent design fails for that reason, as well as these others. For example, complexity. I hear creationists all the time bringing up complexity, saying, hey, look, this thing is so complex, it must be designed. But they don't realize that complexity is not a criteria of design. Thermodynamics, self-organization, and Darwinian evolution are all different mechanisms that we know which drive increasing complexity. We have little laws in physics for increasing complexity, and we've seen it in a lab. Systems that are so-called irreducibly complex systems, we have seen them evolve through Darwinian evolution. We know that there are natural occurring mechanisms which can increase complexity. So complexity is not an argument for design. Similarly, common design, saying that things are similar because of common design, not common ancestry. Common design fails the test. Here's a test. There are 3 animal species in front of you. Which 2 do you think, based on common design, should be the most genetically similar? If you said the golden mole and the eastern mole on the left and right, you would be exactly wrong. In fact, the golden mole is more similarly genetically to the elephant than to the eastern mole. Here's the phylogenetic tree showing that they are more similar than any other true moles. So, I'm hoping that we can hear an actual argument and evidence tonight for intelligent design. Lying about the scientific consensus is not an argument. Quote mining from experts who disagree with you is not an argument. And expressing your own incredulity and saying things sarcastically is not an argument. I want evidence. I want an argument for intelligent design tonight. So hopefully Nephilimfree can provide this. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Grayson, for that 10-minute opening statement. I do appreciate the visuals and your opening arguments. I can tell this is going to be a fantastic debate already. And so with that, Nephilimfree, we are going to hand the floor over to you. And
okay,
you
I need to
also
share
have-
my screen.
Sure, yeah.
Let's see, how do I do that? I've forgotten. It's been a while since I've been done this. What do I click on to share my screen?
Present right next to
Click
settings.
present. Okay. Share screen. There we
Yep.
go. Okay. 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 Uh-oh, do I have to be using Google Chrome for that?
Google Chrome is, I believe, yes, I think it might be
I don't even have
necessary for
Chrome
screen
installed.
share. Are
Let me
you
try it with Firefox and see if it works. Okay, share screen. Let's see here.
what are you using right now, Neff? Are you using Safari?
Entire screen. Oh, wow. Hold on. Wow. There we go. Okay.
She Mark says you should be
Right.
able to.
Now,
Oh, yep, I see it.
am I sharing it?
There you go. You didn't even need me.
Okay. So can you see my slide?
Yes.
Okay, great. So evolution theory is a myth from the 19th century at a time when man knew nothing, and I do mean nothing, absolutely nothing, at all, at all, at all about biology. Nothing. All we knew was you could give somebody morphine or aspirin to ease pain. That was all that was known. Okay, it's a myth from the 19th century. It's philosophy. It's not science. Today we live in a new era. We have scientific verification of creation and intelligent design that is beyond overwhelming, times overwhelming. What you see here is an 1850s or 1860s photograph of a cell. In Darwin's day, all they knew was it was a cell membrane with some goo inside. That's all they knew. Today, we know a cell is a microcosm of machinery driven by information that is complexly specified, prescriptive, functional, algorithmic, semiotic, linguistic, and it's all machines driven by information. Okay, so the evolutionist will say, "Oh, the shuttle is designed, obviously, but yet a cell is orders of magnitude more complex than a space shuttle," and they'll say it's not designed. Why? Because it's not biological. See, that's why they'll say that a space shuttle is designed. Anything biological can't be designed. They'll admit anything is designed unless it's biological. What you see on the left is a pile of sod in the middle of a beautiful grassy knoll. Right? Nobody would look at that and say, "Oh, the wind and rain piled that there." No, everybody knows somebody came along with a truck and dumped it, because that doesn't happen naturally. Okay, but they'll look at this flagellar motor, which has this motor spins at 100,000 RPM, can reverse direction in 1/4 turn without tearing itself apart because of the forces involved. And it has a clutch, and it's made of just like modern electric motors. And yet they'll say, "Oh, there's no design." Right? So this is one of the proofs. This about DNA by itself is proof that life was designed. Okay, this is a slam door on evolution theory. It's over with. Then changes in the scientific community will prove it. DNA is digital. It's complexly specified information. It's prescriptive, functional, algorithmically programmed, linguistically operational, semiotically represented, strand hopping, forward and reverse reading, encoded and transcribed, self-correcting, and highly compressed. These properties prove empirically that life is designed, because prescriptive, functional, algorithmic, linguistic information cannot be produced by anything other than intelligence. Okay, and so how does the evolutionist respond to this? They'll say, "Well, DNA isn't actually complexly specified, prescriptive, functional, algorithmic, linguistic, semiotic, compressed, self-correcting information. Those are just allegories we use to describe it." Well, that's like saying Microsoft Windows isn't actually prescriptive, functional, linguistic, algorithmic, specified, complexly specified, self-correcting information. We just call it that because that's what it seems to be doing. But that's exactly what it's doing, because that's what it is. Okay, so DNA is digital. Here in Nature, this paper, the fact that DNA is digital information is one of the most profound discoveries of the 20th century. Okay, here, theoretical modeling. Right here, they say DNA operates by choice contingent causation and control, prescriptive information, that requires an intelligence. Choice contingent causation and control. Genetic algorithms instruct sophisticated biological organization in this science paper. This one, a study by the Karolinska Institute, discovered that the grammar of human DNA is more complex than that of any human spoken language. Okay, DNA, the technology in cells is way higher than anything man has ever created. It at that scale, at the molecular scale now. These machineries have sensor feedback and response control, logic gate functions, high-speed information storage and retrieval, mechanical levers, scissors, clamps, which manipulate molecules with astonishing precision, feedback-driven multi-component 100,000 RPM motors capable of changing direction in a quarter turn, a mailing address system, mechanical clutches, designation assigned transport vehicles, automated duplication systems, information proofreading and correction, timing mechanisms, a molding machine capable of pressing a variety of products into their various prescribed forms, and so much more. In 2016, Dr. Gerd Mueller, a prominent evolutionary biologist from Europe, a very prominent one, gave the opening talk at the Royal Society, the most prestigious association of scientists in the world. And he said this: the technical literature in biology is now replete with world-class biologists routinely expressing doubts about various aspects of neo-Darwinian theory, and especially about its central tenet, namely the alleged creative power of natural selection mutation mechanism. Nevertheless, powerful defenses of the theory continue at a pace, rarely if ever acknowledging the growth of body of scientific opinion that about the standing of the theory. Recently, there has been such a great disparity between the popular perception of the theory and its actual standing in the relevant peer-reviewed science literature. What he's saying is, never in history have we seen such a great gulf between what people say how evolution is true, and the failures of the theory to be supported by science. That's what he's saying. That is a profound thing for a biologist to say in front of everyone at the Royal Society. You don't say that unless something serious is happening. That is, the gulf just gets wider every year. Ken Dill, prominent evolutionary biologist, says, the case I want to make for you is that proteins are machines. You have 20,000 types of them. And he says, and the first case I want to make for you is these are real machines, not a metaphor. These are machines. Okay, so here's just one of thousands upon thousands upon thousands of examples I could provide of intelligent design in nature. These gears right here on the legs of the isthmus bug, they're curved just like those in the differential of an automobile differential. They lock together so that the organism jumps exactly straight by locking its legs together when it jumps. The idea that random mutation could interlock these gears by making them set each other offset from each other so that they mesh with curved surfaces by random natural selection and mutation is insanity. That's crazy. It's nuts to believe such a thing, that random mutation is going to do that any more than it's going to cause the cusps in the upper teeth and lower teeth to match. That's nonsense. Random mutations don't do that kind of thing. That's miracles you're talking about. Scientists have discovered that bacteria use quantum physics. Quantum physics. Researchers discovered vibronic mixing. They're modifying things with quantum physics in order to send energy where it needs to go. Quantum physics. Okay, so here's a molecular machine in the cell. It uses a clutch and it has a 2-speed transmission. It walks down a microtubule. 2-speed. Okay, the cilia do the same kind of thing. Machines. These science papers describe the machines in the cell. They use the term machines because they are machines. Machines, more papers in the journals. Machines. Everything is about machinery today. That's where it is. Okay, this book, System Modeling and Cellular Biology, makes astonishing statements about what's going on in cells is machinery. This is what scientists are talking about today. It's all machines. They're acknowledging it's information-driven machines. That is the paradigm of the day. Okay, an engineering design approach to systems biology. Biology today is about systems biology now. And it's all about machines, the integrated machinery that causes a cell to function, all interdependent and driven by information. That is what science is all about in biology today. It's about information driven machinery, which is all interdependent with each other. Okay, that is a change. Logic gate functions, binary information code, they have primary memory, they have latch timing systems, digital logic. It's all information technology. Today, when scientists discuss biology, they use intelligent design language. They talk about computers, operating systems, integrated operating systems, driving information driven machinery, computer timing, memory, there's RAM chips in the cell. It's all intelligent design. Now,
1 minute.
this is okay, thanks. This has caused a great change in biology. If in the future your great grandchildren's children will not be taught evolution theory, it is a dying theory, it is dead. Today, scientists discuss biology using engineering language. Many evolutionist scientists themselves are giving talks today where they describe that as a fact. Today, biology is about systems engineering. It's all about, and that is why the future is not going to be anything but intelligent design. In the future, the question will not be, are we designed? In 100 years from now, possibly much less, this question that remains will not be, is evolution true or is design true? The question will be, who is the designer? Not are we designed. Evolution theory is scientifically disproved. It's dead. It's dying, and scientists are giving it up. In the future, there will be nobody talking about evolution theory except to mention it as a historical thing. That concludes my opening statement.
All right, Neff, thank you as well for that 10-minute opening statement. I appreciate the visuals from the both of you. Clearly, you both put in the work for this debate. And so that's what I like to see, gentlemen. We've got some fantastic points on the table, some really good points here to engage in a 60-minute discussion. We want to do our best to keep it as equally timed as possible, making sure we're allowing each other to finish our thoughts and points, and also, most importantly, sticking to one topic and point at a time. So let's do this. Neff just finished with his 10-minute opening statement, and therefore, Grayson, let's allow you to pick the first topic that you'd like to go back and forth on in discussion. Go ahead.
Okay, so I've got a question, but first of all, I want to say what I heard in that opening. I was looking for evidence and arguments, and I heard you gesturing to things are so complex, and you expressing incredulity about like evolution being able to create that complexity. And you said that evolution is a dead theory and it's been scientifically disproved. So that's an interesting statement. My question is, what is the scientific paper or experiment that disproved evolution?
Every science paper that describes machinery driven by information is one that disproves evolution, though the scientists who published it won't admit it or can't admit it without losing their job. So the reason why is because machinery doesn't self-assemble without being instructed to by complexly specified information. Complexly specified prescriptive, functional, algorithmic, semiotic, linguistic information cannot arise by natural processes. It requires mental processes. It requires forward thinking. Molecules do not forward think. Matter is not forward thinking. Minds are forward thinking. So whenever we see prescriptive functional information, especially if we see algorithms and linguistics and going along with it, we know we're talking about something that came from an intelligence. That's precisely what DNA is, and that is one of the biggest discoveries in biology that proves unequivocally evolution theory is not true.
So your argument is that DNA requires some sort of intentionality in order to make any sort of evolutionary changes?
Absolutely. mental processes, not material ones, are required to create prescriptive functional information, algorithms, and to apply linguistics.
So,
Those cannot be produced by material processes.
so what is your argument to support that conclusion?
Well, that is my argument, that forward thinking is required. You have to, intentionality and forward thinking are required to create information is knowledge conveyed from a sender to a receiver, employing a language agreed upon by both parties. Okay, so to share knowledge requires forward thinking. You make a choice to share this knowledge. You're going to encode it,
So,
or you're going to speak it, or write it, or send it one way or another. And it has to be about the future. There's a problem called aboutness there. Okay, matter is not about anything. Minds are about things. Matter is not. That means a mind was involved in creating it, not material processes.
and so no philosophers, geneticists, or biologists agree with you other than the ones that are already creationists, right?
Almost every creationist scientist, almost every, I'll say the vast majority of creationist scientists are men who were already PhDs in science and became creationists after they stopped believing in evolution. They were already an evolutionist, became convinced by the evidence, and are now a creationist intelligent design proponent.
Okay, and how many of those are there?
Thousands.
Thousands.
Certainly. And there are probably tens of thousands who are closet creationists, intelligent design proponents, who know they can't say so, else they will not be able to pay their daughter's tuition anymore because they will
So
lose their
what
job.
is the evidence to support what you just said there? Is it just the vibes that you're picking up that makes you feel like that's true?
No, it's the testimony of these men themselves. Read a book by Dr. Oh shoot, I can't find his name off the top of my head. A book called "Slaughter of the Dissidents," research project. Jerry. Anyway, he's got more education than most 99% of the people on the planet, like 2 PhDs, 3 bachelor's, and 2 master's degrees. He interviewed numerous scientists or university professors who were terminated or demoted on their jobs for no more than simply mentioning that they thought intelligent design might have something going for it while they stir their coffee in the faculty break room. And
Okay.
it's well understood and known.
Okay, so you've essentially said that the discovery of things like DNA in the 20th century is what scientifically disproved evolution. So I'm very curious about this because when I think about the history of science, right, from the time when the consensus is overthrown, or from the time when the evidence came out to the time when the consensus was overthrown because of that evidence, to my knowledge, in the history of science, is never more than a couple years. But here you're positing that it's been more than 70 years since when the evidence came out, and just the whole scientific community has not realized it yet.
No, I mean, to give up, as I said, the paradigm is held to with ardor and faith because somebody's job is at stake, and you will lose your job. Like many examples in Jerry Bergman's book, "Slaughter of the Dissidents," who've been interviewed, who lost their jobs for nothing more than doubting evolution theory, the mechanism, neo-Darwinian theory of natural selection and random mutation, being able to explain the complexity, interdependencies, and the information-driven machinery.
So in science, typically, the way that you make a name for yourself and you make a lot of renown and potentially win even something like the Nobel Prize is you put forward evidence that overturns the consensus. That's like literally how you make the greatest careers in science. So each scientist is explicitly motivated to overturn the consensus with their own discovery. So every scientist is motivated to do exactly what you're talking about, but in 70 years, they haven't been able to.
They may be motivated, but they know that they'll lose their job if they attempt to. That's what I've already explained to you.
So
it's a pyramid scheme. The ones at the top of the pyramid are the ones who control academia. They're the ones that control the scientific associations, the American Scientific Academy of Sciences, the British Science Academy. These are the people who determine what is allowed or not allowed in your school books. They're the ones who decide. Anybody
So,
below them goes against the quota.
okay.
They lose their job.
So
That's well documented.
I don't think that's well documented. And here's my counter example, right? Do you know Mary Schweitzer?
Yeah, I'm familiar with Schweitzer and
Right.
what she was thrown
So
under the bus by her own camp because of what she has
here's the
discovered.
thing on that.
And the evolutionists now acknowledge what she discovered is actually soft
Hold
tissue.
on for a second, because she wasn't thrown under the bus.
Oh, she was.
Initially, when she put forward her paper, she was met with, harsh feedback because she was going directly against the consensus, saying that she had found like collagen in dinosaur fossils.
Mhm.
But she had the evidence to support that. And her evidence convinced the entire consensus to her camp because she had the evidence to support what she was saying. So it's not that your career will be dead ended. Her career was not dead ended. She did not lose her job. She was not blackballed. She convinced everyone because her evidence was strong enough. So
She
where's
wasn't
the evidence
blackballed.
to convince the scientific community of intelligent design? What's the
I don't.
evidence?
Yeah, I don't know where you get this idea she wasn't blackballed. She was. She was spoken of negatively by many prominent scientists, including Richard Dawkins. So I don't know what you mean she wasn't thrown under the bus. She absolutely was. She's not the only case. There are many. An Italian researcher who found bacteria in a salt inclusion claimed to be 250 million years old. He was claimed to be a bad scientist. They threw him under the bus. Lo and behold, he was right. The DNA could be revived, and their DNA cannot be millions of
Okay.
years old.
So
So my question to you is, you've asked me a lot of questions. I'd like to ask you one. Can you give me an idea of how it's plausible to believe that prescriptive, functional, algorithmic, semiotic, linguistic information can arise by material processes? How is that even possible?
So, are you asking me about abiogenesis?
No, the information, not specifically, the information in the genome of every living thing prescribes not only how to assemble to specialize its cells and assemble that organism's body, right? But also much of the information about how to drive it and operate it, minus the information that's in the cell cortex, right? So that information has to come into being. For you to believe that this kind of creature begat another fundamentally different type of creature over a vast age of time requires a continuous input of new information, right? You can't get a land-dwelling creature with legs and lungs from a fish without new information, right? Same thing with birds. You can't get birds from three-toed dinosaurs without new instructions. There has to be, because the genome of a reptile does
Mutation.
not. The genome of a reptile does not possess the genetic information to make the body parts that are in a bird. It's not there.
Mutation.
Right? Okay. So what is the evidence then that mutation is capable of creating prescriptive, functional, algorithmic, semiotic, linguistic information?
We've seen it happen.
Who has seen this happen?
Scientists. I mean, if you
What
want a
scientist has
specific
seen this
example,
happen?
yeah,
What
if you
scientist has said, we've seen prescriptive, functional, algorithmic, linguistic information arise naturally? Because I can quote you secular scientists who say, we've never seen that.
well,
Who?
one of my favorite
Who?
go-to examples is nyelinase. That's an entirely new protein that came about from mutations that has a new function that was not in the genome of the organism before those mutations.
Okay, so here's the thing. So you can have information, you can pluck out a couple of words from a sentence or a couple of letters from a sentence and have a different sentence and kind of get a different meaning out of it. But that's not really new information. That's damaged, modified, existing information. We're talking about information that codes for features, not degrading the biology of an organism so that it can somehow digest nylon, which has no effect on the structural design of the bacteria. No effect on it whatsoever. We're talking about information that codes for body plans.
And I want to clarify that nyelinase is new information. It fits all the criteria for new information. That's what I thought that you were asking me for. If you want to test to see whether or not new anatomy can arise, I offered that in my introduction by saying, look, if new anatomy arises via the mechanism of evolution, then when we look at the fossil record, we should be able to make these predictions for the types of anatomies that we find. And then we find them.
Okay, so what you're doing now is called begging the question. You're looking at the fossils and finding similarity in the homology between one variety of a particular kind or a genus of living thing and a similarity in another variety of a different genus. And these similarities pop up all over the place in the creation. So, and saying, look, I believe that this one is a precursor to antecedent to that one, and therefore the information had to come into being. That's not an explanation of how
I would like
information arises by natural processes.
I would like to clarify that I disagree that is what I'm doing. I'm saying, look, we are not just ad hoc, retrodicting this. We are making a prediction. And this is not just begging the question. This is how hypothesis testing works in empirical science. We say, if evolution is true, then we should expect to find fossils that have these intermediate anatomies. And then we go look for them. And if we find them, then we have supported our hypothesis.
Yeah, but we don't have them. But again, you're not giving us an explanation of how the information can arise naturally. The complex specified prescriptive. You have to be able to explain how algorithms, prescriptive functional information, and linguistics can arise without minds. You can't do that you just can't do that. And as for the fossil record, I'm going to say there is no fossil record that shows evolution. The transitional forms expected by the theory are absent. They're not present. Nobody knows about them.
Did you miss my introduction where I listed dozens of them?
Yeah, I know you gave us examples of what you think are transitional forms, but I'm just going to tell you that they're not.
Why?
Transitional forms. Well, because they're just similarities in homology. That's all they are.
Well, no, they're not just similarities in homology. I want to be very clear here. Their anatomy, their anatomical features were what was predicted. Like with Tiktaalik, we show me another lungfish that has a wrist bones and a neck. That doesn't exist unless you're looking at the fossil record in the layer that was predicted by evolution, and then we found exactly what was predicted. It's not like these are just homologous features. These are anatomical features that were predicted in intermediate mosaic arrangements.
Now, before you respond, I just wanted to ask, Grayson, did you want to put up your visual of Tiktaalik or a couple of the transitionals to engage? You don't have to. I'm just suggesting maybe it might help the audience to see.
I can, sure, but I don't know if okay, I'll put him up.
It's up to you, and then that way maybe Neff can engage or respond to some of the specifics. For example, Tiktaalik would be a good one.
All right,
I'd be happy to. I'm also wanting to share something on the screen myself when he's done.
Oh, okay. Well, look, I listed these ones here for human evolution. I listed Tiktaalik for tetrapod evolution here. I listed all of these for land to sea mammals. And again, it's not saying that these have to be the exact transitions. These could be all sister clades. Every single one of these fossils could have had 0 children. It would not affect my argument. It's about the anatomies of these fossils. Elephants, horses. Here's all the other lists that I had put up. So again, anybody can look these up and see what their transitions are. We have a huge number of examples of fossils whose actual anatomy, their anatomical features, is transitional.
Yeah, no, I'm going to say they're not. And the scientists who are in paleontologists acknowledge that the transitional forms are not present. Can I share my screen? And I'm trying to want to share something with you if it's possible. Is it working? Is it sharing?
No, I don't see it yet. Now, just make sure to click the.
Okay. Wait a second. Okay. So I chose share screen. Is it not coming through?
As long as you click within the box that pops up, the separate box where it says entire screen, make sure the mini box is clicked, Neff, and then you'll be able to click the grayed out share button. It should become blue and you'll be able to click it. I think that's where you're at.
Yeah, it's not working. I don't know what's going on here.
Is it a quote by Jay Gould?
There's more than just Jay Gould. Let's see here.
I can read a quote from Jay Gould too, saying it's infuriating to be quoted again and again by creationists.
I understand that.
as admitting that the fossil record includes no transitional forms. He says transitional forms are generally lacking at the species level, but are abundant between larger groups. The evolution from reptiles to mammal is well documented. There's a quote from Jay Gould.
So does Gould contradict himself? I would think
No.
not. Right. So what he's doing is, I'm trying to share my screen again. Okay, is it not sharing?
Which step are you in the screen sharing process? Let's start right from the beginning. If you click present, should be right
it
next.
says share screen. I click that, and then I get a blue box with some other stuff, and there's nothing clickable except the screen share screen thing.
Is there an option that says entire screen to the far right?
Well, I think I've selected that, and now it's not letting me go back. It's not letting me.
Is it your computer? Did it freeze up?
No, it might be that I'm not using Google Chrome, and Google doesn't like anybody that's not wearing their hats.
Because it did work for your opening presentation.
I know, yeah. Let me try to limit the number of windows I have open. I'm going to close the debate there, and now try again. Okay.
As you do that, I'll let the audience know I'm all caught up on questions. I appreciate the super chats that have come in, the support, and also the really good questions that I'm looking forward to seeing Grayson and Neff engage.
Shoot. How about that? It's not working. Crying out loud.
Well, we have a paleontologist in the comments saying that transitional forms do exist. So,
well, I say they don't, and so do many paleontologists.
Why don't we do this then? Since your screen share,
okay.
Because I'd like to maybe, if you could, Neff, offer a direct response or counter to.
Yeah,
was saying.
Well, I'd be happy to. I was like to share the. Well, I just instead of sharing the screen, I'll just tell you what I had to share. Okay, so Stephen Stanley, paleontologist, evolutionary biologist at University of Hawaii, Hall of Fame top researcher of the decade, says in fact the fossil record does not convincingly document a single transition from one species to another. Okay, Colin Patterson said that. I'm not going to read the whole thing. He says he couldn't figure out how evolution is true after believing it so many years. He asked people at the Field Museum of Natural History, can you tell us what are these transitional forms? Can you tell me one thing you know about evolution? And nobody gave him any answer except one of them said, I know this. It shouldn't be taught in high school. And another one, Stephen Jay Gould says, everybody knows the fossil record doesn't provide much evidence for gradualism. It's full of gaps and discontinuities. Most species don't change. They get a little bigger or bumpier. They remain the same species. This remarkable stasis has generally been ignored. If it don't agree with your ideas, you don't talk about it. The fossil record doesn't document gradual change, and every paleontologist has known it since Cuvier. I have hundreds of these statements from the most prominent scientists in the world. So what you see here is what's going on here is.
Let me respond to something.
Well, let me finish.
I'll jump in, Neff, because you did get a few quotes out. I do appreciate that. Let's now give Grayson the opportunity to respond to.
Okay, so this is kind of what I was talking about in my opening with quote mining, because some of the people that you're bringing up, like Stephen Jay Gould or Stanley, these are like supporters of like punctuated equilibrium. So they're talking about gradualism because they support a different idea of evolution. That is still evolution, mind you. And it was the same thing that you did in your opening with Gerd Mueller, who you were trying to make it seem like he was railing against evolution and neo-Darwinism, when really he's talking about like the modern synthesis, and he's a proponent of like the extended synthesis. So all of these people, none of them are like saying evolution doesn't happen or there are no transitional forms. That's not what they are saying. They're just advocating for a slightly different version of evolution.
No, that's not correct. When Stephen Stanley says in fact the fossil record doesn't convincingly document a single transition from one species to another, he's not fooling. That's exactly what he means. You see, the problem is this: scientists acknowledge in their own books written for their own peers that the transitional forms expected by the theory don't exist. Even Stephen Jay Gould did so. The list of scientists, I have a list of 100 or so who've all acknowledged this, and they're all prominent. These are not guys with a PhD who never got a job in science. These are prominent scientists, and they all acknowledge the fossil record doesn't document transition from one thing to another. It just does not. You have to look at it with your evolutionist glasses and say, "Oh, I can see that." But that's where it lies, in the imagination. Okay, so they can't acknowledge to the public that what they've said in their books written for their peers.
Okay, I gotcha. It's all behind closed doors. I gotcha. But here's what I want to ask you about that then. If there are really none of these transitions, and all of the dozens of examples that I brought up aren't really transitionals, even though their actual anatomy is intermediate, okay, how is it that we can predict them then? Because we've made predictions saying, look, in evolution, we would predict to find a fossil that has anatomy like this, and they make a positive prediction, and they say what layer it should be found in. How is it that we can make those predictions that are then tested, and we found what we were looking for? How can we make successful predictions if we don't have any transition fossils at all?
Sure. So the creation has enough variety that an evolutionist can look at anything and say my prediction came true. The big problem is every fossil is an out of place fossil. I bet you didn't know that. There are no fossils that are concordant, and they're all discordant. They don't fit the evolutionary.
Where's your evidence?
And I'm going to give you an explanation of how that's true. Every single fossil is an out of place fossil. It's not where it's supposed to be. Every single one. And here's why. Because marine creatures are found in the same strata as every living thing on this planet. Yep. Everything. Okay. That means fish, starfish, crayfish, lobsters, crabs, echinoderms, all kinds of brachiopods, all kinds of marine creatures are found in every strata where you find living things, whether they be marsupial, mammal, or a bird, whatever. Okay. So here's
exactly
the problem.
As evolution predicts.
Right. So here's the thing. Here's the problem. Okay. So T-Rex or a hadrosaur doesn't die and go swimming 20 or 100 miles off the coast, die in the ocean, bloat, and then pop and sink to the bottom of the floor and remain in weight. Right, doesn't. So, but he's buried with fish and crustaceans, right? So here's the thing. So either the hadrosaur took him a nice long swim off the coast and was buried with sea creatures in the ocean, or the ocean came onto land and buried this hadrosaur by bringing the sea creatures onto land in the flood of Noah, which took place. And see, that's the problem. When you find a hadrosaur,
I got you. I understood.
When you find a hadrosaur burying with a fish, you have to ask: did the hadrosaur go swimming, or did the fish come onto land with the hadrosaur? Which one would it be?
I got the problem. I understand.
Which one
Here's
is it?
The response is that during the Jurassic period, there's both things on land and in water, and when they fossilize, they'll both be in the Jurassic period. At all of these various periods, there's things that exist in both water and on land, and they will fossilize in the same geologic layer, namely the Jurassic period. So this is why what you're going through is logically fallacious, because guess what? Land animals exist at the same time as ocean animals.
Do you realize what you're saying is every place there's a land-dwelling creature has been flooded with fish and crustaceans?
Nope, that's not what I'm saying.
It has to be, because we find them in the same strata as the fish and the crustaceans. How is that not what you're saying? Base theory. What you're saying, Grayson, is, and you may not realize it, is that everywhere we find land-dwelling animals, that place has been flooded, brought fish and crustaceans to the same place. Well, then how do you explain the fact that the hadrosaur and every other type of living thing, including birds, is found in the same strata with fish, crustaceans, and brachiopods?
I just explained it, because the same strata that you're talking about represents a geological time period. And that time period, guess what existed both at the same time at that time period? Land animals and sea animals. They can be, look, here, what you said about every single land animal has been found in, like, when you say same strata, I would like to clarify. You're talking about in, like, the same location, right? Not strata, because you can
same strata. No, sir, the same strata.
You can have marine strata and you can have terrestrial strata that are from the same period. They're both Jurassic.
No, I'm talking about same strata. Okay, if you dig down and you find a fossil of the hadrosaur, and he's in a strata, That's in a formation of strata. There'll be this strata, the one below it is then this one, then that one, then that one, then that one, then that one. That series of strata. Okay. You go 50 miles away and dig down, guess what? The very same series of strata. That strata 50 miles away or 150 miles away, the same series of strata, okay, was created by the same moving water that created the strata where you find the hadrosaur, because the same series of strata, it's exactly the same ones, right? So if you find a fish next to, you don't have to find the fish right next to the hadrosaur. You can find it 10 miles away in the same strata. That same strata was created by the same
Okay.
event for both locations, and yet it possesses fish, brachiopods, crabs, crustaceans, right?
Time out. If a raccoon here in Texas dies and is buried and becomes a fossil, and an octopus off the coast of Indonesia dies and sinks to the bottom of the sea and gets buried, and they both fossilize, they will both be in the contemporary geologic layer. They will
No,
be in the
sir.
layer from here, even
No,
though
sir.
one died on land and one died in the water. The
No,
same
sir.
strata.
There are two laws in geology that refute that. One is the law of lateral continuity. That means strata, if you dig down in the earth and you find a series of strata, strata 1, strata 2, strata 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, okay, and you go dig 1,000 miles away or 50 miles away and you find that exact same series of strata, they were produced by the same event. Okay, that's a law in geology. That's what
No,
they'll
it's
teach
not.
you in university. It's called the law of lateral continuity. Okay, and there's another, which is that strata are laid down horizontally. If you ever find them in a different position, that means they've been changed in position by geological forces after they were deposited. Those are two primary laws in geology. So the same strata we find crustaceans in, we find all these living land creatures in. What you're trying to tell me is every place there's an animal that is buried, no matter whether it's from Jurassic, Triassic, Mississippian, or Silurian, whatever era, it was also inundated with water because it has marine fossils in it. That's a fact of science.
That's not at all what I'm trying to tell you. Look, there are formations that are aeolian formations, wind deposited, no water involved. There's tons of formations that were not formed from any water involvement. Okay, that is not at all what I'm telling you. All I'm telling you is that in the scientific consensus during the Jurassic period, there are both land animals and sea animals, and if they die and fossilize, they will both be in the Jurassic layers. This is not difficult to wrap your head around.
Okay, so what I was talking about is the principle of lateral continuity. It's a law in geology. Okay, and so the problem for the evolutionist is that we find in the same strata where we find dinosaurs, we find birds, we find sea creatures, and this kind of this just can't be explained by anything but the no way. It is.
I just
true.
gave you an example. Aeolian formation.
It is true.
We find fossils in aeolian formations, right?
Okay.
In formations that didn't have any water. There's no marine animals in those formations. They're full of terrestrial animals and animal tracks.
And what kind of materials would that be, do you think? Sandstone, right?
A lot of them are.
Right. Do you know dinosaur fossils are found in sandstone? In fact, brachiopods, crustaceans are found in sandstone. Okay, sandstone is not void of water.
So now all sandstone is the
sandstone is created by water. You don't get sandstone can't be created by.
There are aeolian formations of sandstone that are not water formed.
Let me finish. Sandstone doesn't form without water. Okay, because
aeolian formations do.
Okay, the aeolian formation is now stone. Okay, sandstone doesn't form without water, bringing the minerals that bind the grains together. Okay, you don't get sandstone without water. Okay, so evolutionists love to point to, well, that dinosaur was buried in an aeolian formation, that's why he's there. But that doesn't work. You see, that's how they try to explain it away. But you know why it doesn't work? Because if a creature died in a desert when he was buried in a sand dune that somehow collapsed on him, where does anybody find sand dunes that collapse? I'm sorry. So wait a minute, please. So that doesn't work. And here's why.
You've been going for a long time now.
Because, well, look, I'm trying to help you understand something. If sand dune did somehow collapse, I can't figure out how, but if it did and buried a creature, you know what would happen to the animal? It would become a mummy, not a fossil. because it would desiccate. It would get dried out. It
Okay.
wouldn't turn into a fossil. That's why we know the
Citation
sandstone
needed.
is not formed by
Okay.
aeolian process,
Come on.
but by watery
Okay.
deposition. Okay.
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 Grayson,
So,
go ahead.
if I could just respond here, because oh my god, I even lost my train of thought because you just kept going. Okay, so I don't even remember what my response was going to be, Neff. I had one. I was trying to say it, and you just never stopped.
Well, we can talk for about 30 seconds apiece. That's not a problem. Right?
Okay,
I only
well,
need about 30 seconds. I
if
don't
you
need
could just
3
like
minutes.
round out your points. Okay, here. I remember what I was going to ask you. I was going to ask you about Specimen Ridge. It's a very specific formation here where it has layers of like igneous layers from volcanic eruptions, and then petrified forest, and then another igneous layer, and then another petrified forest, and then another igneous layer, and another petrified forest. That cannot possibly exist in your worldview.
I don't see why you say that. I just don't get that.
Well, okay,
That doesn't
because
make sense
there's
to me.
there's no marine.
Now we're talking about the flood of Noah. I'm happy to debate that with you another day.
Okay. Well, there's no marine mammals in that formation. There's just forest animals, and then volcanic layer, and then another whole forest. So you don't just get a forest replacing other forest with a volcanic eruption in between like 30 times in the span of 1 year. But fine, Noah's flood is not the topic. Do you want to talk about anything else that I brought up in my opening, like maybe that statistical test of common ancestry and separate ancestry with actual genetic data that disproves separate ancestry?
Well, phylogenetics, yeah, that the problem with that phylogenetics is that evolutionists are the more we study phylogenetics, the more incongruencies there are discovered constantly at finding problems with it. And these phylogenetic trees are based on protein codes, okay? But similarities in protein codes are insufficient for proving evolution because creatures that live in a particular environment are naturally going to have a genetic similarity with protein codes to another creature living in the same environment because they have similar needs, dietary needs. Humans and chimpanzees both can digest potassium. So there's going to be a biochemical need for machinery in the cell, molecular proteins that process potassium, right? That's going to be a protein code similarity right off the bat. So that's all that is. So here's a statement by Linda Walkup, molecular biologist.
Wait, if I can just respond to that before you read the quote.
Okay, sure.
Because I don't know if you heard the part of my opening where I specifically addressed how they controlled for functionality here, because they were testing the third codon position. It's because there's a degeneracy in the code where you can get the exact same protein, but there are multiple different genetic sequences because of that third codon position can be multiple different identities, and you still get the exact same amino acid sequence. So they controlled for what you're talking about specifically in their study. They accounted for that by looking at just that third position where there's degeneracy, and it could be anything, and it was still homologous. So you cannot claim that it's homologous because of functionality. They controlled for that specifically.
Yeah, again, protein similarities aren't going to provide adequate evidence for believing evolution because environmental requirements are going to show that there should naturally be similarities in proteins. The problem for you is how do you get a protein to evolve? Proteins are incompressible information. You can't compress it. You can't evolve proteins. It doesn't work. When amino acid substitutions occur, Wait, I've been talking 11 seconds. When amino acid substitution mutations occur to protein codes, it makes the protein less efficient at its job or completely dysfunctional. That's where you get so many human diseases. But you're wanting to believe that mutations to protein codes makes us similar, when really what it does is degrade organisms.
Okay, wait, Neff. I just want to be very clear because they controlled and accounted for exactly what you're saying. I'm saying, look, you acknowledge that you can have the exact same protein, exactly the same amino acid sequence, exactly identical proteins, but you can have different genetic codes because of that third codon position degeneracy. You can have two different genetic codes that code for the exact same amino acid sequence. So they accounted for that.
Yeah, I understand that they'll work out their science any way they have to. I'm only pointing out it's a fallacious argument from the basis, from the ground up, because proteins can't evolve. Firstly, mutations don't.
Nihilinates.
Mutations don't. Proteins don't evolve by mutations.
Nihilinates.
They get they get degenerated. Right. And did you know that the nylonase, the sequence of information that produces the gene that gives the ability for the bacteria to digest nylon has another function, and that function was degraded when the mutation occurred that gave it the ability to digest nylon. So it comes with cost. There's a
Oh,
cost
well,
because
there was no
proteins
cost
degrade. Okay,
because there was no cost
I
because
just
it
told you
was.
there was.
Wait, let me just get this out here. One sentence, please. There was no degradation or
That's
cost
not true.
because. Let me just talk, Neff. Come on. I know you want to interrupt, but just let me finish one sentence. There was no cost because there was a duplication. The original version of the protein was still present. Then the duplicate is the one that underwent the frameshift mutation and became nihilase. So all it is that you maintain all the same original functions. You now have a duplicate version that has a novel beneficial function of digesting nihilase. That's protein evolution, buddy.
No, that's not protein evolution. That's a degraded protein that happens to match up with the ability to 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 um, to digest nylon. What you've got to be able to explain is how proteins evolve pro bono. Pro quid. It's not plausible. The arrangement of the amino acids is so highly specific. I wish I could share my screen. I'm going to leave the studio and come right back in and see if it with a different browser. Can you give me about 60 seconds?
I see Neff back. And so, Neff, let's
Okay.
look like it worked because I
Yeah.
see
Oh, okay. Great.
your screen is shared.
Right. So I'm going to share a few examples of intelligent design with you. So what you see is a planetary gear system. Okay. This thing would probably not withstand 20,000 RPM. It would probably come apart. Man's machines don't work so great. Okay. What you see on the right side, guess what? That's a planetary gear system. It spins at 100,000 RPM. That's what drives the bacterial flagellum in some species of bacteria. 24 helical gears, all operating in synchronicity. Those are real gears. That's at the molecular level. This is intelligent design. This is a system of planetary gears that outperforms anything man makes at the molecular level. Everybody knows what this is. This is the duplication machinery of the cell. Okay, it operates in a series of complex series of steps with scissors, clamps. Produces a strand of the DNA moving, spinning at the speed of a jet engine turbine when it comes out. This is a ribosome, which operates by choice, contingent, causation, and control. It has logic gate functions. This is what's published in the science journals by secular scientists. It is machinery. Okay. It is outrageously complex. Here's a simple example of the molecular machinery. These proteins, when they align with each other, like there's levers and clamps. It's mechanical. That's what this is a proteasome. This is another machine in the cell, right? It produces repetitious behavior because it's machinery. This is what it's doing. If man saw something like this made out of steel, he'd say, "Oh, look what the engineer made." But then we see it in biology, and the evolutionist is going to say, "Oh, that's not design. This is ATP synthase. It's CAMs with moldable proteins, levers. Each one of these little circles is a single amino acid. That's how specified and complex and minute this is. They're levers which change the shape of molecules. They manipulate individual molecules. They're levers. That's mechanical. Of course, everybody's familiar with ATP synthase and the proteasomes.
Neff, let's stop there because you went through a few.
Okay.
I do appreciate it. Let's,
Yeah.
to be fair, let's now hand it back to Grayson. Grayson, feel free to take equal time if you need to, and go ahead.
Okay, so basically all I'm seeing here is gesturing at complexity and saying, see, it must be designed. But again, like, I need an actual argument for why complex things can't evolve, because obviously I'm going to say all that stuff evolved. There's nothing contradictory there. And all I'm hearing is you saying that you think it's impossible, that you're incredulous, that like evolution can't do that, but like why not? What's the argument? What's the evidence?
Okay. So a couple of things. Firstly, proteins can't evolve. Okay, random
We just went
mutations
through
don't
this.
build complexly specified information. You can't get an amino acid change as a function to produce a novel protein
Myelinase.
by natural. That again, it caused a damage to a protein, and it had
No, it didn't.
had a lucky side effect. That's all that was. Okay,
Okay.
right.
Now it's just
Right.
lucky.
What you're talking about, though, is a lucky side effect that produces complexly specified mechanical machines with countless moving parts that operate in a synchronistic pattern. Do you want to explain that with your lucky, your lucky random mutation?
Yeah,
Good
we've
luck.
observed
Good
that
luck.
too.
What now?
Yeah, we've observed that too.
We've
The
observed
evolution
what?
of HIV from SIV, it literally required like a 4-part and irreducibly complex system, as per Behe, had to evolve in order for SIV to antagonize human tetherin. And during the evolution of HIV, we witnessed that happening.
HIV evolves. HIV changes its genetic signature. That's not the same thing as a complex machine with numerous moving parts
Yes, it
operating
is.
in a synchronicitous pattern come into being when it didn't exist. No, you're talking.
That it literally is what you asked for, Neff. Yes.
No, that is not. Nobody has observed a molecular machine arise in the cell.
I just told you one.
Never.
Yeah.
No, sir.
It was a
No, you're misrepresenting the information.
It was a 4-component biochemical machine, if you want to use that word, irreducibly complex as per Behe's definition, and it evolved between SIV to HIV to antagonize human tetherin. That's how we have
it
HIV.
evolved from two. Okay, so one got modified. You're not talking about one coming into being. You're talking about the modification one. So you just
How do you think evolution works, Neff?
You just misrepresented the fact. I told you that we don't see them come into being, and we can. You said we do, and then you provide an example of one that gets modified by the cell, which is an intelligent design, not one coming into being. No, that's not how evolution works.
That is.
Somebody says, show me one coming into being. You can't show one that's already in being and then say, look, it was modified by me.
Wait.
Hold on, modified
I
by
want to clarify
immune
what you're
system.
asking. I want to clarify.
Okay, Neff, let him clarify. Let him clarify. Grayson, go ahead.
When you say come into being, what do you mean by that? Or do you just mean poof out of nowhere?
Well, that's what we're talking about. These machines coming from non-machines. That's what I asked you for, and you provided me with an example of something that already exists and gets modified to have a slightly different biochemical result, which is part of the immune system, which is program mutation. That's design. Okay, that's not evolution. You didn't give me any.
Yes, it is.
You played a card trick. I asked you for some machine coming into being. You gave me one that already exists and then got modified. That's not the same thing. See?
No, that is literally how evolution works. You take something and modify it via mutations, and if it has a different fitness effect, it can be selected for or against. That's how evolution works, Neff.
How did it come into being?
Wait. Things don't just pop out of non-existence ex nihilo into existence. That's not how evolution works.
So you're pointing to something that you believe evolved, but it was already in existence, and claim it did evolve. It came into being by evolution. But that's not going to happen because firstly, you're talking about something program mutation of the immune system involved in that. Okay, that's intelligent design.
No.
Secondly, program mutation in the immune system is intelligent design.
We're not talking about that though.
But that is what we're talking about.
No,
and
we're not.
Secondly, you're not talking about the machines, the components, the proteins that don't have function in the cell and any other place. So these molecular machines in the cell, the proteins they're made of are specific to that molecular machine. They don't have function anywhere else in the cell. Nothing. They only work on these machines. They are parts of a machine only. They don't float around in the cell and do other things. They do one thing. They're part of a molecular machine. That's all. You are telling us that these proteins came into being that had no function. The cell kept them around, and somehow they co-opted each other to produce these machines. That's what we need evidence for. You have to provide evidence the proteins can evolve, and then the machine can come into being by happenstance.
No, that's a total straw man of evolution. That is not part of the theory of evolution whatsoever. Every step along the way had a function, and then that function gets co-opted to serve a different function.
Well, that's philosophy, not science. That's what you believe.
That's what we observed with Nylanase or with SIV to HIV.
With
The
Nylanase,
examples I brought up have demonstrated exactly that. You're just saying, no, that's not an argument, dude.
No, with Nylanase, we didn't see any molecular machine components arise. We didn't see any molecular machine arise.
It's a new enzyme.
An enzyme, a modified existing enzyme.
No, it's a new enzyme that has a new function.
It's an existing enzyme
that
had a damage event. Let me finish my statement, please. It's an existing enzyme that got damaged and now has a lucky side effect. Okay. What you need to be able to explain the molecular machinery of a cell is that the proteins are going to evolve, and happenstance, they're just going to happen to have their outrageously complex form so that are complementary to other proteins and assemble themselves into a machine that does a necessary function, like create the energy molecule for the cell that the cell depends on. And you need the ATP before the machine can evolve. So that's the point. We don't see molecular machines arise naturally. It doesn't happen.
So again, at this point, you keep straying over to abiogenesis territory. I'm talking about evolution here, specifically with Nylanase. That's not just like a slightly modified version of a pre-existing enzyme. Like, it is a different enzymatic family than the enzyme, the original enzyme. That, like, it was a complete frame shifting mutation. It's a totally different family, a class of enzymes, and it's got a totally new novel function. That is exactly what you're asking for with like a mutation, changing part of this cellular machinery, the enzyme, into a totally new, different function without losing any of the prior functionality, because it was a duplication. You still have the working original.
Yeah, I think you're missing some information here about the Nylanase bacteria. There was a degradation to a protein code because of what happened. It has a lucky side effect that it gave the ability for the thing to digest nylon. That doesn't support evolution because it doesn't change the structural design of the creature in the slightest way. Biochemical changes or adaptations, which give a creature an ability to digest something or deal with something in the environment, doesn't support the theory of evolution. Evolution is a theory of origins. You have to be able to explain the features of living things with evolution. If you have the same anatomy and that anatomy never changes, guess what? There is no tree of life. There is no evolution theory. Right? Okay. So pointing to biological adaptations in the creature, biochemical ones, doesn't support the idea that the creature got lungs when it had only gills before, or that it got legs when it had flippers but fins before, or that it had legs when it has only fins. You see what I'm pointing out?
Yeah. So that is exactly why in my opening, I said, if these anatomical changes are happening that the evolutionary model predicts, then we predict there to be transitionary forms that show intermediate mosaic anatomy. And then we find exactly the ones evolution predicts. And we never find any hybrid creatures that evolution doesn't predict. Like, I went through all the examples. We don't find any intermediate anatomy between things evolution doesn't predict. Just the predictions of evolution are verified.
Gentlemen, can we discuss, maybe, just to leave no stone unturned on Grayson's point? This is free flowing, so don't feel obligated to do so. But maybe some of the very specific anatomical traits or characteristics of, let's say, Tiktaalik. Maybe Neff wants to respond to those, and you guys can engage the specifics of that topic.
Yeah, we can. I would point out before we do that the scientists admit the transitional forms expected by the theory don't exist.
No, they don't.
Hundreds of them do. I shared only 2 of 100 citations that I have available to me. 100. Okay. I'm sorry. They all admit it.
Why don't we do this? Why don't we do that? Grayson, did you want to briefly reiterate what you are arguing about Tiktaalik being transitional, the transitional characteristics of it, and then we'll see what Neff's thoughts are in terms of it.
Okay. So they look at all tetrapods today, and lobe-finned fishes like lungfish. And they said there should be a transitional fossil species found with mosaic qualities of both of these groups. And then that anatomy that was predicted was found in the layer that it was predicted to be found within. It was a lungfish with, again, or a lobe-finned fish with wrist bones and a neck. No other extant fish species has those features. Those are intermediate mosaic features that were predicted, and we predicted where we should find it. Do you think, Neff, that that is just getting lucky or a coincidence?
We all, Jennifer Clack and Per Alberg and all those guys, I'm familiar with them. I've written an extensive article on the subject of fish to land dwell creature evolution. It's got many problems, but again, evolutionist predictions can always come true so long as the creatures of the world produce the varieties that they do. By the way, land-dwelling tetrapod footprints, fossil footprints, have been found in strata that are believed to be older than Tiktaalik.
Why is that relevant?
So how could Tiktaalik be the transition to land-dwelling creatures from fish when tetrapods already existed at the time? On top of that, I would say...
Wait, you just asked a question. Let me answer that.
Okay.
Did you catch the part in my opening where I said it doesn't matter? Literally 1 iota doesn't matter at all if Tiktaalik is the transitional species or just a sister clade. My point is that its anatomy was predicted before it was found in the exact layer it was found in. How is that possible? You did not answer before.
I did. I told you varieties of genus.
I asked specifically, did they just get lucky and it was a coincidence?
No, everything in the imagination of the evolutionist can be found in the rocks, except the actual transitions. By just looking at the features of the creature, they can imagine, oh, that would have existed. See, that's how it works. But I pointed out that okay, so what you're believing now is that the evolution is such a prominent thing. It happened so fast and so many times that now land-dwelling creatures evolved from fish more than once, probably many times, and that's not rational. I would quote Encyclopedia Britannica on Tiktaalik. They say this, and I quote them. However, it is inaccurate to claim that Tiktaalik and other forms represent some of fish amphibian transition or are a missing link between fish and amphibians. Tiktaalik and the other animals looked nothing like conventional ray-finned fishes such as trout and were not closely related to them. Likewise, the first tetrapods on land were nothing were nothing like familiar amphibians of today, such as frogs and
I got you.
Well, wait, why are you interrupting me while I'm trying to read?
Because you've been going on for a while now.
I'm trying to read one long sentence and you're interrupting me. Can I read this one sentence? Just one.
You've gotten the main parts of it.
Every 5 seconds you were interrupting me while I was reading.
No, it's not. It's about 40 seconds that you've been talking nonstop.
Okay, so I'll let you say something, then I'll read it, but I'll expect you to let me.
Okay, yeah. First of all, ray-finned fishes, non sequitur. It's lobe-finned fishes that we're talking about here. But again, you said that, Johnny, is my screen being shared right now?
Yes.
Okay. You said that we find anything under the sun, but no, that's not correct. You can't just come up with these like mosaic quality animals with mosaic anatomy and then find them. We don't find animals with flowering parts or amphibians with feathers or vertebrates with compound eyes or this hippopotamus crustacean. We don't find any of these. The only ones that we find that have mosaic features are the ones specifically predicted by evolution. You can't just say, oh, they can predict anything and then find it, because that's absolutely not true.
That is absolutely true. As I pointed out long ago, evolutionists expect every transition to exist. So if you find mosaic creatures, obviously evolution is true. Now, as for my citation,
wait, why don't we find any of these?
Encyclopedia Britannica. I wanted to read my sentence.
Okay, read it after you answer this. Why do we not find any of the ones I show on screen? Why don't we find any of them?
Okay. Well, because evolution isn't true.
Evolution doesn't predict these.
Even again, if because creatures produce varieties in a genus, you're going to have similarities between the varieties of this genus and that genus. They're going to be some what looks to the evolutionist like overlap,
You're
and they're going to
dodging.
think that's a transitional fossil. But it's not a transition, because if you just point to that
That's
one
not what I
thing,
asked you, Neff.
so
I
you
asked,
can't
why
stop
don't
talking
we
while I
find
answer.
these? I asked you that because you're not answering.
I'm
Why
answering. I
don't we
am.
find these?
You're not understanding or listening to my answer, so
You're
you don't
talking about a different
understand what it
subject.
is. No, I'm not. I'll try to explain it to you. Please listen and understand. We have genus 1, we have genus 2. They produce varieties, okay? The some variety of genus 1 is going to have a lot of similarity to some variety of genus 2. It's inevitable, because the variety of created things is so great, okay? So the evolutionists find these two and they say, look, that was predicted. And they're going to assume that one is transitional to the other when they're not. See, but they don't actually show. What the evolutionist has to have is a series of fossils. You can't just pick this one thing and say, look, it's kind of similar to that, but kind of similar to that, therefore it's transitional. Where's the series? Give me fossil 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7, and then you can see evolution occur. And that's why Stephen Jay Gould, so every evolutionist, scientist, paleontologist is forlorn, because they can't see evolution occur in the
Okay.
rocks. Okay.
Okay. I just showed you Stephen Jay Gould saying we absolutely do see transitional forms. I just read you the quote. So
And
don't
I've got
misquote.
12 quotes by him saying we don't. So
Again,
who is,
he's
did he
talking about
contradict himself?
between species, not between like large groups, like what I'm talking about. So don't misrepresent what people are saying, Neff. But
Oh, I see.
specifically, you did not answer my question. I said, why do we
did.
not see the ones I showed on screen? And again, it's not like we're just ad hoc retrodicting these. The like Archaeopteryx, for example, was a prediction before it was ever found. How is it that we are able to predict the anatomy for
Excuse me.
we have not discovered yet?
Okay, I'll address Archaeopteryx in just a moment. But you did exactly what I expected you to do. You said Gould is talking about large groups. Okay, all he's talking about there is punctuated equilibria. I see a creature way over here has a relative similarity to this one way over here, and that means they're related. That's all. What Stephen Jay Gould is admitting, and many of these other scientists, when I'm talking about, we don't see the transitions. We don't see the one from this genus and that genus. What we see are creatures who have similarity, but it's not enough to be considered transitional by appearance. And that's what countless scientists, including Stephen Jay Gould, is admitting to. Punctuated equilibrium is a theory invented to explain away the absence of evidence. Now, I'd like to get back to my statement. I wanted to read what Encyclopedia Britannica says.
Well, can I respond to anything that you just said?
Well, I mean, I'll never get to read it. I mean, I've tried.
Well, you can read it as long as you read it just after what I say this.
Well, I know it's always after, so long as it's after.
Okay, let me moderate, guys, real quick. I allowed a little bit of crosstalk there over the last few minutes, just because we have had a solid, I would say, 45 minutes of equally timed responses. Nothing wrong with a little cross exam and some healthy interruptions there. But let's get back on track now. We've got 5 minutes left for the discussion. Grayson, let's throw it to you. Feel free to say what you'd like to, uninterrupted. Then Neff, we'll throw it right back to you for your own uninterrupted response. Go ahead, Grayson.
Neff, feel free to read your quote after this response, but I just want to say, like, again, we are predicting specifically the anatomy for fossils that have not been discovered yet. You need to have an explanation for how we can do that, because you can't just say that anything that we can possibly dream up, we can find, because as I just showed, that is definitively not the case. I can think of a ton of different fossil creatures that have mosaic qualities of different extant species that we will never find, like the amphibian with flowering parts on it, or the hippopotamus crustacean. I can literally go all night and come up with all these different mosaic creatures that we will never find in the fossil record. But with evolution, we can predict anatomies before they're discovered. You need to answer. Do you think that is just a coincidence and we're just getting lucky? Because that just strains the imagination that anyone can get that lucky.
Yeah, I did address that already about 4 times. Similarities in the homology, not anatomy, but homology between two varieties of two genus, and the evolutionist sees evolution occurring. And Gould was talking about different genus and similarities between genus, not transitions between them. And that's why he and countless other scientists acknowledge the transitions, the actual transition in between. We don't find them. And that's why Niles Eldredge invented punctuated equilibria theory, which is a theory to explain away the absence of evidence and claim evolution occurs in bursts. And that's why we don't find the transitions, because it happened so fast. We never got lucky and found one that didn't erode away. So now Encyclopedia Britannica argues against the Tiktaalik claim, as other scientists do. You mentioned Archaeopteryx. Alan Fiducia is the world's foremost ornithologist, bird expert, that is. He says, the evolutionists who say, he's an evolutionist, he says the guys holding up Archaeopteryx as a transitional form are just wrong. It was a fully functional bird. It was a bird. It was a different bird. We don't have any like that anymore. They're extinct. But it was nothing but a bird. It's not. It can't be considered transitions to birds. And he's the world's foremost expert on the thing. But the evolutionist, on top of that, bird fossil footprints have been found in the strata what are believed to be 20 million years older than Tiktaalik. So birds already evolved. And new studies show that flamingos, owls, egrets, parrots, penguins, and many other sand grouse, sandpipers, albatross, and owls, modern birds coexisted with dinosaurs in the Cretaceous. That's not the story we've been getting from evolutionists right on up through the 1980s, 90s, that birds didn't evolve until 20 million years after dinosaurs went extinct. But lo and behold, now they're all over the place. Modern birds, penguins, owls, egrets, sandpipers, flamingos, parrots in the fossil record with dinosaurs. So the evolutionists always have to redesign the theory because the scientific evidence keeps refuting what they say. You haven't given us an explanation of how a complex specified prescriptive functional.
Now, why don't we wrap it up there just to give Grayson the opportunity to respond to those specific points you made, and then we'll move on to your next point that you were just about to cover after that. Grayson, go ahead.
Yeah, okay. Well, so yeah, birds coexisted with dinosaurs because if dinosaurs went extinct, then they couldn't evolve into like birds because they'd be extinct. So obviously, like, guess what? There are still other primates around. There are still wolves around, even though dogs came from wolves. Mind blowing, right? I mean, even you agree with that. Again, I don't think that you've answered my question because I asked you so specifically to explain the predictions. It sounds like you're just saying that there were never any predictions, but that's just unequivocally false. Again, the anatomy of Archaeopteryx was predicted. It's not just a simple bird. Find me a bird today that has teeth or that has actual fingers coming out of their wings. Like, the anatomy is not bird-like. The anatomy of Tiktaalik was predicted before it was discovered. The anatomy of Australopithecus was predicted beforehand. Show me another bipedal non-human ape. Like, the actual anatomy themselves of these fossils is what is being accurately predicted, and it just sounds like you're running from that and refusing to acknowledge it.
No, turkeys, and there's other birds that have these finger-like claws. They're really claws that stick out on their wings. In fact, turkeys use them to fight other male turkeys. They'll claw at each other with their wings. So there's your one. Again, I did address. There are birds today that have teeth.
Name one.
Ducks. Certain species of duck.
That's not teeth. Those are serrated beaks.
Okay. So again. Alan Fiducia is the world's foremost ornithologist. You're pointing to a bird that has mosaic features, but it can't be considered, according to him, it can't be considered transitional. It's fully a perching bird with perching bird legs and hip design. Okay, so the fossil record doesn't show the evolution of of birds. The problem is, as I pointed out, evolutionists were telling us from 1840 or 50, all the way to 1975 or 80, that birds did not exist on this planet until 20 million years after dinosaurs went extinct. Now we know that owls, egrets, flamingos, sandpipers, grouse, penguins, flamingos, and albatross, and others coexisted with dinosaurs. The evolution theorist was wrong. They were wrong. They're always wrong. They have to change the theory and say, "Oh well, look, they did coexist, so they evolved earlier." That's how they fix the theory. Say, "Oh, they just evolved earlier." But why are they always telling us what's wrong? No, they didn't exist until 20 million years after dinosaurs went extinct. But that was wrong. It was wrong for 140 years. It's still wrong. See,
Yeah,
that's
nobody's.
the problem.
Yeah, you're just misrepresenting that.
No,
I
that's the
mean,
facts. Everything I've said is
no,
100% a fact.
I
Are you telling
understand that you
me?
believe that,
Are you
but
telling
here,
me that evolutionists did acknowledge that birds? Are you saying they didn't claim that birds didn't exist until 20 million years
hey,
after dinosaurs went
where
extinct?
are the fingers here? Where are the
Is that
fingers,
what,
man?
I want to get to your statement about this. I want you to acknowledge. Are you
Yeah.
telling us the evolutionists didn't tell us from 1840 to 1980 that birds didn't exist with dinosaurs until birds didn't exist until at least 20 million years after dinosaurs went extinct? Is that not what they've been telling us for 140
Nope,
years?
it's not. You're just misunderstanding. Now
Oh my
answer my
gosh.
question.
Okay, everybody, please go
Neff,
investigate
Neff,
evolution theory,
Neff,
the history of it.
where are the fingers on
That's
this
false.
turkey? You claim
That's
turkeys have
false.
fingers. Where are they?
What you just said is scientifically false. That is
Neff,
what
you're running.
evolution
Come on,
is.
man.
I'm
Where are
not
the
running.
fingers?
You
Where are the
just
fingers?
misrepresented evolution theory.
Where are the
That's
fingers on
not.
this turkey, Neff?
That's not true. They have claws on their wings, sir.
Where? Where are they?
Well, I
Point
can't
out.
show you in the picture. It's not. The picture's not showing it. Turkey,
Where?
look it
Where
up.
are they?
Look it up on the internet. Turkeys have a claw on their wing. Okay.
I've looked. Turkey, wing, claw. I'm not
You'll
seeing
find it.
it.
You'll find it. You're looking for pictures. Look for articles. You'll find it. Okay. And
Oh,
they're
okay.
not the
So there's
only.
no pictures of it then.
And no, there are. That's not the only species of bird that has them too. There are others. Okay. So
Okay.
yes. So
Where's
but,
that again?
you misrepresented evolution theory when you said that's not what evolutionists said for 140 years. It is right on up to not very long ago, in fact.
Gentlemen, I just wanted to point out we are about 10 minutes into the bonus. We've got bonus minutes. We do have a lot of questions. And so did you gentlemen want to wrap it up here?
Yeah,
and move
let's
into
do that.
Sure.
Okay. And in a way, Grayson, you started the discussion. So Neff, we'll give you the last word. Did you guys want a minute or two to as in the form of a summary, or just go right into the audience questions? It's up to you. It's more
I'd
informal.
like a minute or two closing statement.
Sure. Yeah, let's do that. Okay. So Grayson, you started us off with your opening. So let's give you roughly 2 minutes for a summary, a closing statement. We'll do the same for you, Neff, and then we'll go into our Q&A. Grayson, go ahead.
Okay. So I know that Neff feels like he answered my question, but fundamentally, he was not able to. I laid out very specific anatomical predictions and then the fossils that were discovered that matched those predictions. I asked, why is this just a lucky coincidence? Or why is it that they're able to accurately make predictions about the anatomy of fossils that we have not discovered yet? I didn't get any answer. I asked, why is it that we never find fossils that have mosaic qualities that evolution does not predict? How come we never find those? And I went through tons of examples and there was no response to that either. I showed that study that is literally the only study that you need to thoroughly discredit separate ancestry and intelligent design and show common ancestry, that statistical study of the genome. And that proves beyond a shadow of a reasonable doubt that common ancestry is true and separate ancestry literally cannot be. It is statistically, mathematically falsified.
Thank you very much, Grayson, for that summary. And Neff, let's give you the same thing, about 2 minutes for a closing statement. Go ahead.
Okay. So I did answer his question 3 times. He misrepresented evolution theory by claiming that evolutionists did not claim for 150 years that birds didn't coexist with dinosaurs, but didn't evolve until 20 or more million, some said 40 million years after dinosaurs. In fact, it was in the 1970s, many scientists were saying birds evolved 40 million years after dinosaurs went extinct. That's just 20 million years ago, allegedly million years. Okay. So I don't either. Maybe Grayson doesn't know evolution theory's history at all. Maybe he's not familiar with what they were teaching you in the 1980s, 1960s, 1950s, 1900. Maybe he doesn't know. But that is, in fact, what evolutionists claimed right on up till relatively recent. Okay, until they find all these bird fossils in the Cretaceous, modern birds with dinosaur fossils. Okay, so he misrepresented evolution theory there. My opponent has not given an explanation of how complexly specified information such as algorithms, prescriptive functional information, linguistics can arise by unnatural, non-mind processes, purely material processes. Hasn't even addressed that, didn't touch it. He didn't touch how molecular machinery can arise by mutation to proteins, or why this would be such an outrageous, it would be orders of magnitude greater than all the particles of matter in the universe for natural processes to produce proteins that have these outrageously complex facings on them that just happen to correspond to other proteins so that they produce mechanical functions like a machine operating at thousands of miles per RPM. You have to believe in the most outrageous odds. This is just magic times magic. Okay.
20 seconds.
Okay. So he hasn't actually explained anything except his belief that a protein change in a bacteria, which also produced a negative effect, somehow is evidence that one type of living thing comes into being from a different type, that anatomy changes. This is the kind of thing evolutionists point to when asked for evidence: biochemical changes, not anatomical ones, because they can't do that. That concludes my statement.
Okay, why don't we get some final words, final thoughts, if you gentlemen would like to. Grace, let's start with you. Appreciate you doing this. Final words, final thoughts.
Well, Grayson, you want to go first, or you want me to? It doesn't matter.
Well, I went first on the last closing thoughts, so you can take it from here, Neff.
Okay,
Neff, let's do it. Thanks for doing it.
Sure. Okay, lungfish are living fossils, and they have no transitions. Evolutionists admit that. So my opponent, who was not able to give me an explanation for the arrival of information in his last
I should clarify. I meant just final thoughts, as in like, hey, thanks. I don't want to get any extra closing.
Oh, okay, not a final statement.
No worries, no worries.
I should have been more. I enjoyed this debate. If there's
fault.
going to be a live stream afterward, like a after show, I'd like to join that. Anybody who knows of one, send it to me. I'm in an email. My email is IamNephilimfree@gmail.com, or you can send it to me in a YouTube message and a post or something. Because I'd like to stay up a little later and keep doing more talk about it. If anybody's going to have an after show, let me know.
Awesome.
Right.
Yeah, Grayson, thanks for doing it. Go ahead. Final words, final thoughts.
Oh, and thanks to Grayson for debating with me tonight. Thanks.
Cool. Well, the one thing that Neff and I have in common is that we do love debating this topic. So, I mean, we were debating back and forth in the emails about junk DNA for like a week or two, like even just setting this debate up. So we definitely love to go back and forth on it. On the thing about lungfish, I just want to stipulate that like the earliest lungfish were marine. And so they did not have this quality that current day lungfish have, where they can survive on land, like without water. So we do have very, very basal lungfish fossils that are marine and do have very basal qualities and are not like today's living lungfish. So we do have changes in lungfish over the fossil record, and I can provide Neff with the names of those fossils as well. So I think, I personally didn't think that I got any of my questions answered or addressed adequately, the ones that I brought up in my opening, which I think unequivocally, mathematically show that there can be no separate ancestry. Common ancestry is supported by the actual statistics, the genetics, and we make testable, predictable predictions of the fossil record. And that's what is the golden standard of science. And that's why evolution is science. And I think it's awfully convenient that Neff predicts that evolution will no longer be taught.
Now I feel bad because I cut off Neff when he was starting to summarize and give
He
another.
can have. He can say after this. Then he can
Okay,
say.
if you don't mind. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah,
Finish your
it's fine,
thoughts,
it's fine.
Grayson. I'll throw it back to
I
them.
just think it's funny that Neff's prediction that your grandchildren or in 100 years or something that evolution is no longer going to be taught is just convenient because it's after his lifetime. Because he's making predictions for after our lifetime, something that we won't see. That it's our grandchildren that'll see it. It's just a faith position. I understand that makes him happy to think about a future where evolution is discarded, but no, sorry, I'm going to dash on your hopes and dreams. There's pretty much 0% chance of that happening, and I will bet big money on that, Neff.
And Neff, before you respond, Bubblegum Gun has given us an after credit super chat. And so appreciate it. He just wants a yes or no, something real quick. We'll honor it because he did pay the big bucks for it.
No.
He's asking you, Grayson.
The answer is no.
Okay, there we go. Short and sweet. Hope it was worth it for
just because of convergent evolution. So there you go. That is the known mechanism.
Let me just say this. I debate on Discord too. Discord is a chat app. I do it a lot. I may be there after this show. So if anybody wants to come in and do a after show on Discord, find me in one of the debate servers like politics or politics and religion, or in modern day debates.
Wait, just pick one server, Neff. Tell people which server you're going to pick.
Well, I'll pop into any one of them, maybe.
Okay.
But. Yeah, I would love to continue. Lungfish are living fossils, by the way.
There's nothing wrong with living fossils. You can have
no transitions. They appear abruptly in the fossil record without precursor.
There are totally precursors.
Not according to paleontologists.
Boom, ending. Is that a good place to end it?